It was one of those warm, golden evenings in the heart of downtown Arlington. The streets were alive, pulsing with energy as people weaved in and out of charming little cafes and bustling storefronts. The hum of casual conversations mixed with the occasional honk of a car horn, creating a familiar urban symphony. Elijah Grant, a highly decorated Navy SEAL on temporary leave, walked at an unhurried pace along the sidewalk, blending in effortlessly with the city's evening rush. He was dressed simply, just a well-fitted gray t-shirt, dark jeans, and a pair of sneakers that had seen their fair share of miles. A worn leather messenger bag rested against his side, slung over his shoulder with the ease of someone used to carrying gear far heavier than books. And books were exactly what was on his mind. For the first time in months, he was heading to a local bookstore, finally making time to pick up a novel he had been meaning to read. A rare moment of peace. Just as Elijah stepped off the curb to cross an intersection, the distant yet unmistakable sound of a police car approaching caught his attention. A subtle shift in the atmosphere. Then, tires screeching lightly as the vehicle came to a halt. A moment later, the door swung open, and out stepped an officer. A white police officer, Officer Carden. His movements were slow, deliberate. His sharp blue eyes locked onto Elijah with a piercing gaze, scanning him with an intensity that felt less like standard protocol and more like a predator sizing up its next move. "Hey you!" Carden barked, his voice slicing through the air, overriding the steady hum of city life. Elijah halted mid-step, turning his head just enough to meet the officer's gaze. His face remained unreadable, calm. "You seem to be in a bit of a rush, don't you?" Carden continued, his tone laced with something more than just curiosity. Suspicion. A hint of something unspoken. Elijah kept his posture relaxed, but he knew where this was going. "Just heading to the bookstore," he replied evenly, his voice betraying no emotion. Carden folded his arms, a smirk creeping onto his face. "The bookstore, huh? And that bag of yours, what's in it? Anything I should be concerned about?" There it was, the implication. The assumption wrapped up neatly in a question. A few pedestrians nearby slowed their pace, some subtly glancing over. Attention had settled over the scene, thick and familiar. Some people kept walking, unfazed, as if they had seen moments like this unfold before. Others, however, lingered, curiosity flickering in their eyes. Elijah inhaled deeply but remained composed. He had dealt with worse than this, far worse. "You want to check?" he asked, his voice steady, his expression unwavering. There was no defensiveness, no aggression, just an unshaken confidence that seemed to throw Carden off for half a second. The officer straightened, as if regaining his footing. "I'll be the one asking the questions here," he snapped. A beat of silence passed. Carden's fingers hovered near his utility belt, as if the mere presence of his hand near a weapon was meant to communicate authority. The crowd had thickened now, some bystanders pulling out their phones, recording quietly. The buzz of anticipation hung in the air like static before a storm. Elijah tilted his head slightly. "All right, officer," he said, his voice still unshaken. "Then let's do this the right way." Carden's expression tightened, as if the control of the situation was beginning to slip from his grasp. He took a step closer, the faint clink of his boots against the pavement punctuating the charged silence. "Drop the bag," he ordered, his tone harsher now, as if volume alone could reaffirm dominance. Elijah didn't flinch. He let a moment pass, then carefully slid the bag from his shoulder, holding it out. "Sure," he said simply. But there was something calculated in his ease. This wasn't submission, it was strategy. Carden snatched the bag with unnecessary force. His jaw clenched. "Hands behind your back," he demanded, reaching for his cuffs. At that, Elijah raised an eyebrow. "Am I under arrest?" His voice remained steady, controlled. "You're being detained," Carden shot back, deliberately skirting the question. "You match the description of someone we're looking for." A wave of disbelief rippled through the onlookers. A woman holding up her phone muttered, "Here we go again." Elijah let out a slow breath and gave a measured nod. A faint, almost imperceptible smirk touched his lips. "All right, Officer Carden," he said, stepping forward just slightly. "Let me help you out." Carden stiffened. His hand twitched near his holster. "Stay right there." Elijah halted, lifting his hand slightly. "Relax," he said, his tone cool, almost amused. "Just reaching for my ID." Moving slowly, deliberately, he pulled a small, sleek cardholder from his back pocket. From it, he extracted his military ID and handed it over. Carden hesitated. His fingers closed around the card, his smirk faltering as his eyes scanned the name, the rank, and the unmistakable words, United States Navy SEAL. The shift was immediate. "You still think I fit the description?" Elijah asked, his voice as calm as ever, but now laced with quiet amusement. The crowd, sensing the change in dynamics, leaned in closer. Phones were now openly recording. The moment had turned. Carden's jaw tightened. He tossed the ID back toward Elijah carelessly, like it burned to hold it. "That doesn't mean you're above suspicion," he muttered. "Stay put while I check your bag." Elijah crossed his arms, his expression unreadable except for the faint smirk playing at the corner of his lips. "Go ahead," he said. "Make sure everyone sees what you find." The tension was thick as Carden unzipped the bag, his fingers moving through its contents. The crowd watched, recording every second. Inside, a neatly packed book, a stainless steel water bottle, sleek black laptop, everything arranged with military precision. Carden pulled out the book, flipping it over. "What's this?" he demanded. Elijah didn't even blink. "A book I wrote," he replied smoothly. The title glared back at Carden, Leadership Under Pressure, A SEAL's Guide to Resilience and Excellence. A few chuckles rippled through the crowd. The irony wasn't lost on them. Carden's face darkened. "You wrote this?" he asked, as if it were somehow beyond belief. Elijah shrugged. "That's what I said. Want an autograph? Or are you just going to keep rummaging?" Laughter broke out among the bystanders. Carden's face flushed red. He shoved the book back into the bag with force, his frustration bubbling over. "Cut the attitude," he snapped, defensive now. "This isn't over." Elijah lifted his hands in mock surrender. "Hey, you're the one making a scene," he said, his voice calm yet razor-sharp. "I'm just trying to go about my day." Carden rifled through the bag one last time, finding nothing but more evidence of how wrong he was. Defeated, he shoved everything back in, zipped it up, and all but threw it toward Elijah. "You're free to go," he muttered through clenched teeth. Elijah took the bag, slung it back over his shoulder, and met Carden's gaze one last time. His smirk, just a little wider now,